You're listening to the Flex Success podcast, where we teach you how to be less shit.
I'm your co-host Lizzy, and this is Dean. We'll be covering all topics relating to health, fitness, and bodybuilding.
Join us as we use our in the trenches experience and up-to-date science to provide you with information that you can actually use.
If you like what we do, be sure to give us a like, follow, share, and tag us on social media. Are you going to introduce the podcast or me?
This is the introduction.
Usually before we press record, we decide who's going to do the intro, but we didn't this time.
I just thought I'd stick with the Chandler smile for those that are watching on YouTube.
Now, this podcast will be released on December 16th, so just a week and a half before Christmas, really. So we're going to make it kind of Christmassy in the sense that Dean is here with his guitar and he's going to sing us some Christmas tunes. Surprise,
It's an air guitar.
No, what we're going to do is we understand that some of our audience are prepping for season A, and so sucks to be you, except for maybe a sensible Christmas lunch. Things are as they are on prep. But for most people, they have physique goals, but also want to let their hair down a little over Christmas. So we're going to talk about how we might be able to balance two conflicting goals like that. I don't imagine that we have a single person of our audience that is like, I don't have any physique goals at all. And because that's cool. Like some people train specifically for health only, and there's no physique goals involved at all. And that is totally fine, but they're not the type of people that are listening to this podcast. So we're not talking to those people, but we're also not saying that you have to always have a physique goal. We just know that's our audience.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of bodybuilders.
And
lots of physique enthusiasts.
And I know this sounds like an insult, but like gym rats, just people who like really enjoy being in the gym a lot and don't want to compete, but just have physique goals for, I don't know, their own ego or personal preferences.
I've never understood that as being an insult.
Gym rat?
Yeah, even like meathead. I'm a bit of a meathead. It's fine.
No, it's meant as a bit of
I know it is, but he's a real meathead. It's a bit different. But like I love beef.
It definitely depends on the tone, doesn't it? Fucking meathead.
That's what they mean by that, right?
Oh, that beautiful meathead. Yeah. Okay. But before we get there, because it is very close to the end of the year, we thought we'd give you some 2024 relevant, highlights, things that happened in the industry, flex success highlights that we wanted to share with you. Take it away, Dean.
Client wins. One massive win for Flex as a company, but more specifically for Coach George and his client Blake. We had Blake on the podcast recently, and we also had George recap this as well.
Blake is the wheelchair athlete.
Correct.
Yep.
He recapped this on our season C recap a couple of months ago, and that was that Blake both earned his pro card and then won his pro debut at the same show, meaning he was then qualified to go to the Olympia.
Very cool.
Super fucking cool. So massive win for them. George got to go and witness his first Olympia experience. It was the first time back in Vegas, and I think he had a great time. So shout out to those two boys on such a fantastic season. And I'm sure now that's the goal every year, which is the fun part of the first Olympia qualifications. Now that is the goal. Usually, like every year it's the requalification. Usually it's just, I want to get to one. And then next year it'll be like, I want to go up some places. So it's progressively going to get more and more like intense. And then on the same sort of or similar front was the pro debut for Cam George, having won his pro card a couple of years ago in Australia. So he debuted in the 212 pound division in Tampa, and then again in Texas with 2 top 5 finishes and some really, really positive feedback from Tyler Mannion and other judges and other competitors. So he'll be going again, same time, 2025, see if we can improve that. And I mean, like I have a heap of client wins that I'm happy about, but to list them all off would be forever. Just a really awesome
what a flex team
season thus far. and year, like a lot of the pro guys that didn't compete this year are looking next level different for 2025. So I'm super keen for 2025 already.
And lots of potential for next year for 2025 for the Flex Success team. Every year, like somebody has a really high standard and a really good track record, you kind of expect that of them for the following year. That's what I'm seeing from you and George's clients, right? So like I expect you guys to do really well, but every year you continue to impress me, the team in general. So I'm looking forward to seeing the things that will impress me in 2025.
Yeah, I had heard, whispers in 2023 of like people making comments when they introduced guys at the amateur shows in Australia to like, oh, this is so and so from Flex Success, and everyone would be like, fuck's sake, like,
Another great Flex Success.
this is going to be tough to beat.
Yeah.
And it was actually the same, and I witnessed it firsthand this year at Season C, which was, a personal highlight for me to return to Australia. But maybe we'll touch on that in a second. But it's actually made coaching even more enjoyable for me. I think some people could like find this like nerve-wracking and that the expectation is higher now. Now there's more pressure, but for me, it's actually more exciting. Like the pressure is the fun part of like, because now it's like I'm gonna produce, and then it's like another like validation of success for the company, which is really cool for the coaching team. So that's fine.
Yeah, maybe just to clear up a little bit of confusion, why everyone's like, well, this is where your client wins. So of what were like 2 or 3 years ago, I stopped taking on one-on-one clients and I run the business, I support the coaches, and where it's needed, I support the clients of the other coaches, which is why I'm not talking about my personal clients because my role has shifted.
Yeah, and your athlete development sessions that you have embarked upon with some of my clients, I know for sure, probs aren't ones to talk about because they're more personal.
Oh, yeah. So essentially, the coaches are well trained, well equipped, very experienced in helping people, using their soft skills with behavior change, mindset adjustments, improving habits, things like that. But sometimes especially if an issue is chronic, it can be really difficult to tackle something in a focused manner while also staying on top of programming and nutrition and supplements and sleep hygiene and all the other things that the coaches are doing. So if the coach has tried using their soft skills to help someone with an area that has a lot of room for improvement or development, I will then take that client and do, we call them athlete development sessions, and develop something very focused together. And it has been very successful, hasn't it?
Massively.
It's been great. But these things are like pretty personal and probably things that the athletes don't feel ready to talk about and maybe don't want to share. So I won't share. And that's fine.
We will not be talking about anybody's.
No, we won't.
That didn't exist. But yeah, they were client wins. Personal wins?
Personal wins.
For me, traveling back to Australia for the first time, like 2.5 years, was in of itself a cool experience to sort of see how much, if at all, Australia had changed. Not really. And in doing so was, at the Season C competition, which was like really, really cool for IFBB Australia. That was a huge win. I also am going to give a shout out to client Matt O'Reilly, his lovely partner Emily, and their friends Justin and Jenna.
I had a huge girl crush on Emily, by the way.
JJ. For possibly, I'd say, like meal of the trip.
Oh yeah,
mate.
Didn't they do a barbecue for you?
Yeah, Justin cooked a mean Wagyu steak. They also him and Jenna made I think it was broccoli and cranberry salad.
Can I just say,
doesn't sound great, but it was incredible.
I'm very irritated by the way you said Wagyu.
Why?
I don't know, because I think that
Wagyu.
It should be Wagyu. But whether I'm right or wrong or not, I'm just telling you that I'm irritated by Wagyu. I don't know why that word just
because you've gone all Spanish
penetrated me
on the pronunciation of the
I don't know.
Wagyu.
I hate it, and I don't know why. Wagyu. I don't.
Well, it's WAGYU.
Okay, I would like to move on.
Anyway, amazing meal. I have to give them a shout out. It was so good.
Okay.
And then similar to that, the debut that Cam had in America.
Cam George, for those that are like, which Cam?
Which we also went second season, pro season for Alex Connors. Wow, maybe you could say third. Let's call it second legit season. We had the opportunity to go and spend some time at the house of the owner of Gasp, Michael, Gasp and Better Bodies, where he had about 15, 20 people around for a barbecue. And it was just a really cool experience to sit there with one of the industry giants. So
lovely.
It was awesome.
Good. Shall we get straight into the silly season tips, or do you think people are interested in my highlights? Probably not. No, let's move on to the silly season tips, shall we?
I mean, people are interested in it.
Okay, I'll give mine quickly. I became a dual citizen this year. More people have fled Venezuela than any country in the world to date, I believe, more than Syria, more than Ukraine.
Wasn't it like 7 million?
7.7 million Venezuelans have fled, and more would. They just can't afford to. So no one's going to Venezuela and becoming a Venezuelan citizen, right? Like that's as insane as going to Ukraine right now and trying to do that. But I did. My mother's side of the family is from Venezuela. I still have family, unfortunately, that are trying to escape. So they're still living there. It was great to catch up with them. I spent time with my mum. We didn't murder each other, which to the surprise of everyone, some people just clash, we clash. So it was a highlight that we didn't murder each other. I was extremely difficult, and maybe I need a little bit of therapy after the fact, but I managed to secure my Venezuelan passport, which gives me benefits in Spain, where Dean and I are living now. So that's the reason that I did that. Not as an end in itself, but a means to an end.
No, it was supposed to be a 2 to 3 week stay.
So,
and it ended up being a 6-week stay, right?
Yeah. So, oh gosh, I don't know how much
I was going to say, all the while, this happened while I was in Australia. So I went to Australia, Liz went to Venezuela. We expected her to be there for 3 weeks. She'd then go and have a chill, fun, enjoyable time with a friend of ours in Germany at the time. And then I would come home and we'd meet in Spain and it would all be lovely.
It didn't work out like that. And I can't actually tell the full story because I will incriminate myself. But I guess what I can say is I was told, it'll only take a week. You just have to come to Venezuela and sign some paperwork and give some money to this person and it's all done. But, plan for 2 weeks in Venezuela to be safe. By the 2-week mark, nothing was done. People were paid handsomely. They were not taking my appointments. And I had to take matters under my own wing. What's the saying?
In my own hand.
I don't know. I had to take matters into my own hands and I did some risky things. And anyways, I got out of there in 5 or 6 weeks and it was a terrifying stay. It's a very scary city. People don't stop at red lights even because they're afraid that if they stop their car, someone will just come up with a gun to the window and best case scenario, just take their car. So it's a very, very dangerous place and very, very scary trip, but I did it and I'm proud of myself. I'm traumatized, but I did it.
And there was a massive personal win.
What was that?
Outside of the citizenship.
Oh, Carlos?
Oh, Carlos.
Oh, I made a friend and I love him so much. Yes.
You were introduced to cachapas.
So there's a Venezuelan food called cachapa, which is like a corn pancake, kind of.
Yeah.
And I've fallen in love and I've taken cachapa back home with me to Spain and I've introduced them to Dean and now we're both in love.
Can confirm delicious.
Yes.
With pabellon.
Yeah. Sorry, my very short highlight of the year has kind of turned into a long, boring story and not so much of a highlight.
But it's an all-encompassing personal highlight in that we, collectively as a couple have managed to sell 2 properties in Australia that we had prior to obviously exiting it. In preparation for then buying 2 in Spain. Meanwhile, picking up the citizenship in Venezuela. So that in 2 to 3 years' time, Liz can actually become a citizen of Spain then.
I can only become a citizen in Spain because I have a Venezuelan passport.
In that time frame. Otherwise, it would be 10 years committing to Spain, which we're not willing to do.
No.
So huge wins collectively there, despite the turmoil that you
Oh man. So Dean and I had this big messy plan and it all looked so crazy, all the individual puzzle pieces, like sell this, go to this country, get this, apply for this visa. And I don't know, somehow it has, even though there's been more hurdles than I had anticipated, all of those puzzle pieces have come together and it seems to be working out.
Yeah. For now. Until the next bomb is dropped. And then before we get into the silly season stuff, just quickly, because I've had some people ask me to actually talk about that. And this, for those on YouTube, I've just presented you with my forearm. I got my tattoo that is dedicated to human evolution just recently, 2 weeks ago now, 2 weeks ago tomorrow, from an artist here in Spain called Sylvia Castillo, I believe her name is, an obsession tattoo.
Which means castle in Spanish.
I had spoken to Daniil, my client, at the Olympia in 2023 about this tattoo. and the concept of it, and had all these ideas, and I didn't really know how to put them on paper. Anyway, Sylvia she produced something incredible. You can't really see it very well, but basically I've got a tattoo that starts at like sort of chimpanzee monk DNA into humans, into, as Coach George called the guy that I've got at the bottom here, Meta Man.
Right.
Which I liked.
And which Yuval Noah calls
Homo Deus.
Homo Deus, yeah, which is when Homo sapiens combine with AI.
Yeah, so the tattoo, really, the meaning is just that I appreciate science. I appreciate the recognition of the reality that is human evolution. And
sorry to all the religious people out there.
It was a soft nudge.
Soft stab. I just had to highlight it.
So it's sort of, goes Vitruvian man into this meta man and like into a computer chip, and it's just super fucking cool. Fine line work. I'm really, really happy with it. So now I'm just like, what do I do on the other side already? Every time I've gotten a tattoo, I think, ooh, what next?
What next?
So this one took 2 years. Who knows how long the next one will take?
Yeah, it's a very nice tattoo, Dean. It looks great on you.
Muy bien.
Muy bien. Okay, so now we're going to talk about Christmas stuff. And we know that when we're talking about a birthday, for example, or an anniversary, for example, it's a one-day event most of the time, unless you're one of those loopy people who has like a birthday month.
Yeah, birthday weeks. Come on.
I don't understand. But anyways, for the most part, events are like one day. And if people go silly for one day, like it's not going to have a huge impact. But when it comes to Christmas, we know that actually Christmas starts even kind of like mid-November. By that stage, all of the shops have decorations. There's early Christmas parties. People are sort of letting their hair down already. And this follows through to even like the first week of January. So really,
because then there's New Year's.
Because then there's New Year's and we're still on holidays. So really, it's like a 6 or 8 week fiasco.
Schmozzle.
And when I say a lot of damage can be done in 8 weeks, by damage, I mean, if people have particular goals, fat loss, muscle gain, for example, a significant amount of backward steps can be made in that amount of time.
Yeah, like grossly over-consuming in one day.
What's one day going to do?
Far less impactful than moderately over-consuming
for 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. Do the math.
Yeah. It compounds.
Yeah. So I suppose tip number one is, sorry, Dean, I realize that I'm not doing these in order now because we do have a list.
Pick your days.
I suppose tip number one would be have some boundaries around what Christmas really means for you. For some people, it might literally be one day, like Christmas lunch at my grandma's house or something like that. But those boundaries for other people might be like, look, it's my work Christmas party. It's also Christmas lunch at my nan's house. And maybe it's also like this other day that I'm celebrating with friends. Whatever it means to you, have an idea of where Christmas starts and Christmas ends, because we just don't want it to bleed over to 6 weeks. There's absolutely nothing wrong with even being a little bit more indulgent than maybe you have planned. The problem for your goals is when Christmas lunch then becomes Christmas dinner and then leftovers the next day, and then you go to a picnic and you let a little bit loose there as well, and then you're like, oh well, I've already ruined it, may as well do this until the end of the week, so on and so forth.
Yeah, the fuck it, it's festive season attitude.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I think like it's like important to realize to recognize quickly that there are certain things in periods throughout the year, like whether it be Easter or Christmas, that maybe have some foods associated with it that are like only right now foods.
Birthday
cake isn't, yeah, but like, yeah, and like a Christmas ham is not something that like maybe your mum or dad or brother or sister is going to go to the effort of cooking on a Saturday.
Okay.
So like, and maybe your family doesn't do a lot of like desserts typically, but for Christmas, they go all out. So this is a one-time opportunity to have some of it, but it still doesn't necessarily mean that like all the other events are going to align with that. So like usually a Christmas party, for example, doesn't have those things. They're just going to be at a restaurant,
right?
Or they're just going to be at someone's house. And it's going to be pretty basic. So like same with like picking and recognizing it. Pick your poison in that. If you've got a work day and then a friend's lunch and then a family lunch, maybe the family lunch has the things that are a little bit more indulgent that you really won't ever get an opportunity to have for another 12 months, technically. So pick your days.
But the work lunch would be steak and salad.
Yeah. Because then the opportunity is to obviously celebrate with friends and family. That's the actual opportunity and the fun thing about it.
Right. It doesn't always have to be just about food.
No.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. I like it. Very cool.
I say we shoot back to our 5 tips.
Yeah. Would you like to go to tip number 2 and then I'll jump to tip number 1 because we're doing it all backwards?
I mean, sure.
Go for it.
this is actually probably a relevant tip for work parties, and that is to preload. And by preload, we mean consume a meal that is typically going to be just very high in lean protein, and or may also have with it something else that is low energy density, like fruits and vegetables. So you're going to have a meal of a reasonable size that's substantial to keep you relatively satisfied immediately prior, or like pretty soon prior to going out for that meal, so that you don't enter into that event with an already very hungry stomach and a high appetite, to the point where it may afford you like an easier opportunity just to have that fuck it mindset. And instead you'll find that you're already full. So now you're asking yourself, like, what do I really want? As opposed to like, what do I think I want?
Yeah, and how easy is it to just sort of grab the most delicious, quickest thing when you're starving? So, preloading doesn't mean you have to be stuffed before you go out for dinner for work, but you just don't want to be starving.
Yeah.
And examine.com actually have a really great article. Let's see if I can find it. If I can, I'll put it in the show notes. On preloading, and they show that if people preload on the wrong on very energy dense food, if people are snacking on like donuts, for example, before they go out to dinner, the total sum of calories that they consume is actually greater than if they didn't consume anything at all before the meal. But if people are preloading on high protein foods and low energy dense foods, which is another way of saying low calorie foods, then their overall consumption between the food that they chose to preload on and the food of the meal is lower than if they didn't eat anything at all prior to the meal. So we're not just saying preload, choose a Mars bar. We're saying choose wisely.
Enter it so that you're not starving, because we all know the decisions that we make when we're starving aren't always the best, especially when you get to a restaurant and the first thing that usually goes on the table is bread, dips, and usually like fried snacks. So if they're the ones that are easy to eat a lot of, and they also then drive your appetite to then eat a larger main, and then to also then have dessert. So
this discussion about preloading has sparked another thought that's relevant here, which is around the fact that when people are gearing up for Christmas, for example, they might want to overindulge multiple times, but they don't want the consequences of weight gain. So what they might do is restrict themselves in the days or weeks prior to the Christmas season. And for a lot of people, what actually ends up happening is the opposite of what they're trying to do. They're trying to eat a little bit less then, so they can eat a little bit more now. But they enter the Christmas season, which is full of tempting foods and tempting situations. They enter that Christmas season feeling really restricted, feeling really hungry, feeling like, oh, I haven't had this for so long. Now I'm let off the leash. And they end up eating far more. They ignore hunger cues. They're not intentional with what they eat. They don't eat sensible portions of more indulgent foods. So there's a double loss there, because there was sort of the pain of restriction before, and now there's this hyper consumption and then this food hangover that happens in January. So for some people who do restrict and don't feel that the consequence for them is that they feel let off the leash, maybe it's not such a bad thing. But most people do feel that way, or a lot of people do feel that way.
Yeah, I think there's a sensible sliding scale in both directions too. Yeah. And my experience has been is that if you have somebody that restricts marginally, to put an arbitrary number on it, like 100 calories a day for 5 days, right? They've saved up 500 calories. They usually then will enter that meal with the expectation of, look, I've saved a little bit, so I can have a little bit.
Okay.
But if somebody restricts heavily, they have this like probably incorrect perception that they've actually restricted a lot. Therefore, they've got a lot of room, and then they almost always grossly overconsume because the whole rhetoric of I've earned it comes into, and also like there's a big disconnect between like what people perceive to be they're eating in regards to how fewer calories they're consuming, and then how much they think that they didn't overeat. Oh, but I only had 3 small donuts. Like,
but we see this in the research
calories
all the time, don't we? People underestimate how many calories they consume.
Nutritionists included.
Yeah, nutritionists include personal trainers, and it's absolutely true. And when they're asked to even record the food they eat, people are under-recording because they kind of sort of forget on purpose. And
Yeah, so if you sensibly, restrict, you'll often sensibly overconsume because you realize you don't really have much up your sleeve, calorically speaking. So don't overdo it, because it's gonna cost you in absolutely every facet, more than likely.
Yeah, I suppose the last tip here before we move on to the next point is that if you are trying to reduce your caloric intake, try and do it in a way that doesn't take a lot of cognitive effort. So if I skip an entire meal, for example, that means that I won't be eating for 8 hours. I'm going to be starving. I'm going to be distracted from my work because my stomach is growling. Instead, what I might want to do is swap dried fruit for a fresh apple. So I'm still having the same volume of food, for example. I'm still feeling satiated. I still have the habit of chewing and digesting and whatever, but I've reduced calories there. It's not a lot of cognitive effort to swap dried fruit for an apple.
You may even feel like that you're eating more.
Yeah.
You hear this all the time in people. I'm eating more and I'm losing weight. Like, yeah, because you're eating less energy dense foods and more volume of foods.
You're eating more food in mass, but fewer calories.
Yeah. So like for the week, that's the other one. It's like switch out remove one rice meal out of two. Switch the second rice meal for potato.
Yeah.
These two things alone will probably save you 200, 300, maybe even 400 calories, and you won't even know that you've removed it.
Yeah, you had 200 grams of rice, have 400 grams of potatoes, still fewer calories.
Yep. So win-win.
Yeah.
Or 16 kilos of strawberries.
Oh my God.
So yeah, preload plus all the extras.
Okay. So the next point here is around having an abundance mindset. And so this can be looked at in a few ways. The first one being, if we enter Christmas feeling like it's the only time I can eat delicious food, of course, there's this kind of last supper mindset where you feel like you need to eat it all now because it's your last chance. Part of having an abundance mindset would be reminding yourself that actually you don't live in Venezuela. Delicious food exists every day of the year. There is no shortage of food here. No one's dying of hunger. Any day of the year that you choose to eat very delicious food, you can get it like that. You can open your phone and get it delivered to your front door. That is how privileged we are here, if you want to be. So just reminding yourself that we have an abundance of delicious food all the time might go a long way in helping you intuitively eat more sensibly around Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
The other way to think of having an abundance mindset is instead of getting your plate and going to the food of all the delicious foods and being like, oh, I should only have a little bit of this and one square of that, and oh, look how small my plate looks. Fill your plate with abundance. Fill your plate up with, I don't know, the roast veggies, the ham, because the ham's usually pretty lean, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, again, you can choose part of the ham that is primarily lean for the majority of your meat, and then you might choose a bit of pork crackling just goes on the side.
Yeah, so once your plate is full, then decide now what are the foods that I really, really want. Oh, I'm going to have this mac and cheese, put some of that in there. And there's not a lot of room left on your plate. Have as much as you like, but there's not a lot of room left on your plate, but you have an abundance of food in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know about the listeners, but like one of the things that I enjoy, like I genuinely enjoy feeling quite full, you know, sometimes not over full, but like full. So like if I go to a Christmas party, but I also like have particular physique goals. So for me to feel full and to fill my plate with the most delicious stuff is going to be very, very calorically dense. So like I like having a big plate of food, but I also love fruits and vegetables and all the rest of it. So that to me is like quite an enjoyable experience, even though I'm still having a bit of the stuff that I really, really want, but then I'm also having a lot of the stuff that I still really, really enjoy.
And that you also should have.
Yeah. And to be honest, like the distance between the two of enjoyment is actually not that far from me.
Which is a good segue to I'm going to say our final point, because the other individual points we sort of worked into these other ones.
Yeah. I think the other one was like a one and done. We kind of spoke about that, didn't we?
Yeah. So the segue being, you're better than eating meaningless calories. I mean, Dean just mentioned that the distance between the foods that he enjoys that also happen to be the foods that he should be eating for his goals, and the foods that he really, really wants, the distance between the two isn't all that much. For some people, that might not be the case. But what we need to do is be intentional. We're not just going to go, yes, it's Christmas, I'm going to have this, I'm going to have that. Think about what you really enjoy. We can use something called a cravings thermometer to help us judge this, because it's not about, do I want this food or do I not want this food? Because cravings and taste and preferences isn't a light switch or a yes or no like that. It exists on a spectrum or a thermometer of cravings. If we think about 10 being, I will die if I don't eat this food right now, and 1 being, please get this food away from me, we need to rate how much do I want this food right now. And, you know, if it's between a 1 and like a 4, it's like, I don't really want this food at all, or I'm not really bothered. A 5 is like, yeah, maybe a 6 getting there. We're going to ignore the 7 because a 7 seems like an ambiguous. I'm not really sure. Is that high or low between 1 and 10? So we're going to ignore the 7. So if you would like the food an 8 or above, then it would be worth considering having that food. Of course, if there's 50 foods on the table that are an 8 or above, maybe we need to make a shorter list than that. But I suppose to summarize this point here is we want to be intentional around very delicious foods and figure out what are the most important things for me right now. For me personally, it's anything to do with potatoes, fries, chips. In England, they're very specific. Crisps means a packet of chips, for those Australians out there. Fries mean like fat fried chips.
Yeah, isn't fried?
Well, I'm talking in Australian language now, and French fries is like thin fried chips, right? We all know that, like McDonald's.
Chips are steak chips in the UK.
Right.
They're thicker cut.
Yeah. I don't know. They're very specific in the UK. In Australia, they're all chips. So any hash browns, potato jams. So that would be my choice, but I could definitely leave like sweet things. I don't really have a sweet tooth, and that might be the opposite for you, and that's okay. But I'm not just going to load up on all the delicious things because not all of them give me the same amount of pleasure.
Yeah, but you're also not going to forego the opportunity to say eat 25 potato gems by having a small portion of the something that is like a 4. When you know, at least this is what my thought process is like, and being intentional even in my choices is the thing that I really, really, really want. I now have to ask myself, like, the thing that I kind of want, do I want to have some of that and then have a little bit of the really, really want, or do I want to have a little bit more of the really, really want but forego the other stuff?
Yeah.
So that to me is like an intentional choice around like that as well.
For sure. For me personally, I would forego something that I kind of want so I can have more of the thing that I really, really want. I would definitely, though, not start eating the food that I really, really want when I'm feeling hungry, like at the beginning of the meal, because I eat faster, I'll eat more of it. And it's more of an effort to stop eating it. I will eat the foods that fill me up, that make me feel good, like the Christmas ham, some baked vegetables, things like that. And then I'll go for the things that I really, really want, but I'm not feeling like it's such an emergency to eat.
Yeah. Yeah, I do similar.
It's just less cognitive effort to be sensible when you do it that way.
And I almost always have like the 2-plate rule that I've spoken about before. It's kind of like a 1-plate rule, but the 2-plate rule in action kind of probably makes a bit more sense. And that is plate number 1 is filled up with all of the things that I know are good for me and that are like low calorie density and will fill me up. And then that will be a large plate. And then the next plate might be like something a little bit smaller, but I have some rules around like how much I'm willing to put on it before I get to the delicious part.
Yeah, let's call them flexible guidelines.
Yeah.
Shall we? Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Love it. Of course, there's, other tips we could talk about, like urge surfing, for example, or environment design. But I feel like if we give too much, maybe we will overwhelm. And so we'd rather give a little and you take all of those things away. So perhaps we'll stop there. Our next episode is released, just after Christmas or on Christmas Day?
No, it would have to be like the 30th of December, technically speaking, if this is released on the 16th.
It would be the 30th of December, you're right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we could do a part 2 because people probably still have events on after the 30th of December. Let's see. We'll have a think about it. But otherwise, we are going to wrap it up, guys. And we have decided that as of this episode onwards, part of our wrap-up segments is going to be quick fire questions. Maybe, Dean, I'll ask them to you in this episode and you ask them to me in the next episode.
Okay.
All right. But beginning with a less shit tip, how could people listening be less shit?
I think we've given every one of these tips as a less shit tip, to be perfectly honest. I think that the best one, though, is the last one that you actually finished on, is to be intentional. I think a lot of people like enter into Christmas events and all the rest of it without actually having any thought about like what a successful meal is to them or what a successful event is, even if it comes to like communicating with more people. Most people just show up and go, oh, fuck, I hope I don't overeat. Or, like, oh my God, like I'm super nervous about the following things. Like just actually sit down and have a think about like what a successful event is for you. Because otherwise you won't really know what to do when you get there if you don't have a yardstick of measuring. So.
Or even if this, then that kind of answers in your head. If this happens, then I will do that.
Yeah, so that's my be less shit tip.
I like it. Good. So we're going to go, we're going to finish on the would you rather.
Well, we always do.
Okay, all right. So we're going to go rapid fire.
I haven't actually read it either.
Dean, what, the would you rather?
Yeah. You haven't made it up?
You haven't read it because I'm going to make it up on the spot. No, rapid fire questions. All right, scrunch or fold?
Fold. I'm not discussing.
Really? Okay. Coke or Pepsi? I know this one.
Pepsi.
He's wrong.
Max specifically.
You're wrong. It's Coke, but that's fine. Bottom or top?
Bottom.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it depends.
As your partner of nearly 11 years, I feel
just
like
to make it known, I don't want my bottom played with. Just continue.
Okay. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Absolutely.
Okay. Shoes too big or too small?
Too small.
Okay. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Correct answer. Relaxing resort holiday or action-packed adventure holiday?
Action-packed adventure holiday.
Toast or cereal?
Toast.
Really? Peanut butter, crunchy or smooth?
Crunchy.
I can't believe I'm surprised by any.
But not if it's on toast. Just crunchy on toast is a bad choice.
Okay, all right.
But
I disagree, but that's fine. Depends the type of toast, doesn't it?
I mean, if you
want
your toast to become crated, like,
well, how strong are you spreading this peanut butter? Okay, rapid fire. We're going to move on. Nearly there. Which would you choose? Peed on by a stranger or pooped on by a baby?
where are they peeing on?
It's rapid fire. You can't ask questions.
Pooed on by a baby.
Gross. I would say that regardless of your answer, though,
Yeah.
to be fair. Okay, last one. What's worse, a noisy eater or a heavy nose breather?
Oh, this may be two of my pet peeves.
Come on.
A noisy eater.
Uh-huh.
Come on, man. I mean, maybe you've just got a lot of hair in your nasal cavity. Maybe you're a big dude, but like you can't help that.
Uh-huh.
But you can help noisy eating. You absolutely can. It's a choice.
Okay. It's a choice to be annoying. Okay. Would you rather, last point of the episode, Dean, I'll ask you, right?
Uh-huh.
Would you rather have out of control pubic hair, or when I say out of control, like it interferes with the function of your life, okay? Or have long toenails and you can't get rid of them?
So toenails grow forever?
No, your toenails don't grow forever. They're just like an uncomfortable length. So you have to buy shoes one size bigger.
Do they fold down the tip of my toes?
They're not that big, but to the point that like you always have
talons?
holes in your socks because they're like stabbing through your sock and stuff.
Okay. And am I currently still with you?
I mean, you probably wouldn't be if you had out of control.
Neither. I don't want to have pee-pee pubes.
Yeah, look, they're your choices.
And the pubes only interfering with my life when not erect.
I mean, yeah, like when you wear swimmers, there looks like there's a bit of padding there and stuff.
Padding's fine. I'm not wearing
all right,
toes.
make your choice.
So hang on, out of control pubes or
out of control toenails?
I mean, I think I'd just wear socks. I'm going toenails.
It would be uncomfortable. I feel like you would have sore toes all the time when you're wearing shoes.
Yeah, but imagine how sad I'd be with all of those pubes everywhere, no one wanting to go near that.
Yeah, you would have a reputation. You definitely could hide the toenails more than the out of control pubes. Good choice, Dean. I'm going to say I agree with this choice for once.
And bring them back. If the current humans of the world can bring back really fucking ugly New Balance tennis shoes and flare jeans, and them apparently be fashionable, or are you just a sheep? I don't know. I can get away with 60s pubes.
I'm not sure if you can, but I see the kind of logic that you're going with.
Have you seen these New Balance shoes? I'm pretty sure I can get away with these.
Look, they look comfortable, but you're right. All right, guys. Merry freaking Christmas. I should make note that I'm still wearing my pajama pants right now.
Which are to theme.
They are. They're Christmas Grinch pants. I bought them from Primark yesterday, which is Europe's version of Kmart. And they're very comfortable. I do not apologize for wearing pajamas on the podcast.
And I'm also not wearing any pants. No.
Yes, you are. Those out of control pubes are on display.
They're on my chin.
Yeah, sometimes I do see a beard hair around. I was like, that looks like a pube, but I know it's a chin hair.
Even when I've gone to friends' places, I feel like I need to tell them. Just to let you know, if you see any hairs in the bathroom, they're not from here. They're from there.
They look the same.
Don't be judging my pubes.
They're from my face. All right, we will see you guys in the next episode. As we said, the next one gets released on December 30, but assuming you don't listen to it right away, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll see you in 2025.
See you.
Bye.